Well, I stopped for a walk here at the Wild Horses Monument. It's up there on the hill behind me. But I don't think I'm going to walk up to the top of the monument. It's a bit smoky here at the Columbia River. I think I'll just take a little walk around here, stretch my legs, and then keep moving. So I'm here on the stretch of I-90 that I didn't take on the way to Seattle because I looped down on Highway 12 through the middle of Idaho. So now I'm going to go through eastern Washington next couple hours, which is, I don't know, an acquired taste. The Channeled Scablands, wide open spaces, millions and millions of tons of basalt, rattlesnakes, sagebrush. I kind of like it. So let's see, right here we got this little viewpoint I'm coming up to, and then this here, we got the mighty Columbia River down behind us there. I think you can probably see it. I-90 crossing the Columbia River. And might go walk over on the edge here. There's nobody here, which I'm kind of surprised. In the summer tourist season, there's usually people right here hiking up the hill or dumping trash all over the place, things people do. So here's a little better view from down over here. So there's I-90 crossing the Columbia River and the gorge of the Columbia River back there. Okay, let's go get back on the road. I mentioned the Channeled Scablands, so let's go take a look at kind of an interesting example of that. So the Channeled Scablands, there are all of these rock formations in eastern Washington. There's not really mountains in eastern Washington, but there's places where the basalt, the lava that is covering the surface of the earth here, this huge ancient lava flow from tens of millions of years ago, there are places where it's carved out in interesting ways, deep, jagged gullies and things like that. And it wasn't well understood. 100 years ago, nobody really knew why it's like that. It looks like water has flowed in various places and carved out these structures, and yet it's an extremely dry, barren area. There's no precipitation, there's no water like what it used to be, real wet or something. It doesn't add up. And I'm getting off of I-90 here at Silica Road, and we're gonna drive down to Frenchman Coulee, and I'm gonna show you an example of these structures, one of the more dramatic examples. But what happened is there was this guy, this geologist named J. Harlan Bretz, who back in the 1920s, he had a theory for how this all came about over here. And he was seen as a quack by many. And his theory was debated for 40 years or so, and eventually, like around the time of his death, he was proven right, and now it's widely accepted that his theory is correct about how these formed. But at the time he came up with his theory, one of the reasons other geologists thought he was a quack was that geologists have always had this notion that if you see something and you could explain it as a one-time bizarre, cataclysmic, catastrophic event, or some boring, tedious little routine thing that happened billions of times over, that in general you want to err on the side of it was probably just a boring, simple thing that happened over and over. So like if you go in a cave and you see the stalactites stuck to the ceiling or the stalagmites building up from down below, those are an example of that principle. Well, my God, look at this. Frenchman Coulee is closed. I wonder why that is. I've been going to this spot my whole life, and I've never seen the road closed. Oh well. So, to continue our geology lecture of the day, so the Channeled Scablands, they thought, the kind of by-the-book geologists thought that, oh, well, I guess water just kind of flowed and carved out these bizarre big structures here. And what J. Harlan Bretz came up with is he said, no, there was a one-time catastrophic flood that caused these. This wasn't little bits of water flowing over and over. This was one like incredible flood, water hundreds of feet deep, going at super high speeds, just ripping huge canyons in a matter of days. And so he was seen as a quack for believing that. But then what happened is they found up over by Highway 2, they found these boulders, big like automobile-sized boulders. And these boulders were made of a kind of rock that doesn't occur anywhere around here in Washington or even in Idaho. The rock in those boulders was from western Montana, between like Missoula and the state line over there. Like, how did big boulders from that part of the world end up here hundreds of miles away? Well, as it turns out, the answer is this. There was a massive lake over there they call Lake Missoula, kind of a great lake in western Montana, that was formed at the end of the last ice age. So this is like around 15,000 years ago. And this massive lake, it broke loose one fine day when the 3,000 feet deep ice that was filling a valley and blocking the lake and holding all the water in there, when it finally melted enough to break loose, and there was this huge flood. And all that water went charging westward, scouring, Idaho and eastern Washington. And all of that water had in it massive chunks of ice, icebergs, charging across the area, which would have been cool to see. And some of those icebergs were so big, they had like these massive boulders embedded in them. And eventually the ice melted enough to dump the boulders far away from where those boulders were ripped out of the mountains of western Montana. So Bretz was vindicated. He was proven right by the discovery of those boulders, and they've since found a bunch of other evidence to figure it out. But if you ever get to eastern Washington, Dry Falls, the Sun Lakes area, Frenchman Coulee that I just tried to go to, I assume it'll reopen eventually. That's a spectacular spot. Steamboat Rock, there are all these places where you can go see these amazing rock structures that were formed at the end of the last ice age. And I should mention, it wasn't just one fine day there was a huge flood. There were a bunch of huge floods. Like they think there might have been dozens of them that ripped things out. But each one of those was a few days of just unbelievable flooding. The biggest floods that are known to have ever occurred on the surface of the earth happened right around here and created the Channeled Scablands. So that's the verbal version. Unfortunately, I couldn't show you the visual version just now because Frenchman Coulee's closed. I'll have to look into that.